The night was thick with silence, save for the distant sound of crickets and occasional bark of a stray dog. A dim light flickered through the cracks of a rusted iron gate, guarding a building that looked no different from any other compound in the quiet town of Uvomi, somewhere in the southeastern Nigeria. But within its words, beneath the cover of darkness, was a horror unimaginable. Inside, Karachi, an 18-year-old girl, lay down on a thin mattress, sobbing, her swollen belly rising and falling with each breath. The room reeked of body sweats due to overcrowding. A dull hum of a generator outside did little to mask the low sobs of the other girls cramped into the same space. Some just weeks away from giving birth, others fresh victims of a nightmare they never saw coming. Karachi wasn't always here. She wasn't always a prisoner. Karachi was the first daughter of a devout Catholic family. Her father, Mr. Eche, was a retired school principal, and her mother, Mrs. Eche, ran a local provision store. Their family, though not wealthy, had a reputation to protect. She had always been a bright student, the kind of girl who topped her class, with dreams of becoming a medical doctor. She gained admission into one of the notable universities in the country to study biochemistry, a stepping stone to her ambition. Then she met Onyebuchi, a final year economics student who was the son of a business magnate. He was charming, confident, and had a way with words that made Karachi feel special. He introduced her into a life of luxury, taking her on rides in his posh car around town, introducing her to expensive restaurants she had never been to, and showering her with expensive gifts and promises of a future together. When she found out she was pregnant several months later, she had called and informed him, thinking Onyebuchi would stand by her, but instead, he had disappeared. His number stopped going through. He also blocked her on all social media platforms. She asked some of his friends she saw around, but they all said they don't know about his whereabouts. Obviously, he had warned them not to disclose where he is. Karachi felt helpless, devastated, and heartbroken. It wasn't long before her mother noticed. She called her aside one morning. Karachi, I noticed you've been acting strangely these days. You're always sleeping and you look pale. I hope it's not what I'm thinking, she queried, her eyes scrutinizing her daughter as she spoke. Karachi denied it, but a visit to the hospital confirmed the woman's suspicions. She was very angry and disappointed at her daughter, to say the least. Just overnight, her once loving mother turned cold towards her. We sent you to school to study, but you ended up with an unwanted pregnancy. Instead of making us proud, we decided to bring disgrace and shame to this family. How can I face my fellow women at the parish? You cannot have that child in this house. Go and meet whoever is responsible for your pregnancy. You are no longer welcomed in this house, she shouted at Karachi. Karachi cried. She pleaded on bended knees. Mom, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Help me beg Daddy. I can't even face him. Don't send me away. I have nowhere to go. But her pleadings turned on deaf ears. The mother wouldn't hear of it. Her father, who had always believed in discipline, refused to even look at her. There's no way he would allow his daughter give birth to a child in his house out of wedlock. The neighbors whispered. And before the news could get to the church, her parents sent her away from the house without remorse. With nowhere to go, no money in her pocket, she found herself wandering the streets until fate brought her in contact with Madame Cassie, the woman who promised to help her. Madame Cassie had promised to take care of her till she put to bed, after which she will offer her a place to work so she can earn enough money to fend for herself and her baby. Little did she know she was walking into a lion's den. Madame Cassie was a woman of power and influence. She was in her late 40s, tall, fair-skinned, and always dressed in expensive lace. She spoke with an air of authority, the kind of woman who commanded respect. She had connections, police officers, doctors, and even politicians who benefited from her trade. She ran a home for destitute young girls, claiming it's an NGO established to keep young girls out of the streets and empower them to make something out of their lives. But in fact, it's a facade for a baby factory business she had built over the past decade. She had an apartment somewhere in the outskirts of the town where she accommodates the girls away from the prying eyes of the public. There, she kept them to be producing babies for her business. She was a ruthless woman who knew how to keep her operations running smoothly. Madame Cassie had two men allies in the business, Dr. Banjo and Auntie Letty. Dr. Banjo, her personal doctor, had been struck off the medical register from her practice, but here he was untouchable. Dr. Banjo had once been a respected doctor who had worked at a reputable hospital as an obstetrician, but his greed ruined him. In his bid to make extra quick money, he had landed himself into a big trouble. A patient had lost her life in one of his illegal activities in the hospital. The person in question was the daughter of a powerful politician who had come in for an illegal operation. It was a messy case. He was almost jailed, but somehow came out of it. However, his medical license was revoked in the process. With no job and debts piling up, he found his way into Madame Cassie's business. Here, he didn't need a license. He just needed to keep the babies alive until they were born. He used one of the rooms in the home as his theater, where he operated and delivered the girls of their babies without paying too much attention to their safety. These girls are just vessels, he told himself. Once they deliver, they are no longer needed. The guilt, if he ever felt any at all, had gone long ago. Madame Cassie's right-hand person, Auntie Letty, was a woman in her mid-50s, whose face was hardened by years of cruelty. She had once worked in a government-run orphanage, but she saw how easy it was to make money selling babies. She was eventually caught and sent to prison. After her release, she found herself a new employer, Madame Cassie. Here, she was in charge of the girls and decides what their fate would be. If you try to escape, you will regret it, she often warned. She starved those who misbehaved and beat those who tried to run. The girls feared her more than they dreaded childbirth. Madame Cassie didn't just sell babies, she was a businesswoman. The rules are simple. She accommodates and takes care of the girls while pregnant. Once they put to bed, they walk away without taking a single look at their babies. Anybody that disobeys disappears. Madame Cassie had her targeted audience. Desperate childless couples willing to pay millions. Wealthy ritualists looking for newborns for sacrifices. Foreign traffickers who exported babies overseas. To the outside world, she was a philanthropist. She donated to churches, sponsored political campaigns, and flaunted her so-called NGO before the public. People commended her efforts of taking the young girls out of the streets and helping them make something meaningful out of their lives. In their eyes, she was a savior. But behind closed doors, she was a monster. Karachi soon realized she had been deceived. Madam Cassie was no savior. She was a businesswoman running one of the country's notorious baby factories. The moment Karachi stepped into the compound, her phone was confiscated. She was locked in with the other girls, their only purpose to give birth. Some of the young girls weren't brought pregnant. They were either kidnapped or runaways from home who were brought and kept for the same baby-making purpose. Men were hired to come and make them pregnant. The girls were given just enough food to stay healthy, but no more. The only medical attention they received came from Dr. Banjo. He came in twice a week, checking their vitals, ensuring the merchandise, their babies, remained in good condition. Each girl had a price tag on her belly. Boys sold for 2.5 million. Girls sold for 2 million naira. Twins, a jackpot. The buyers were a mix of desperate couples, ritualists, and even international traffickers. Some of the girls, those who resisted, had their babies taken by force. Those who tried to escape were never seen again. One night, Tema, one of the girls, went into labor. There was no luxury of a proper hospital. Dr. Banjo and Auntie Leti handled everything on the improvised delivery room. The baby's first cry was quickly muffled by a cloth. A fine boy, Dr. Banjo muttered. Tema wouldn't stop crying. I want to see my baby, she pleaded. Auntie Leti's face hardened. No be your pikin again, no. You sabi the rules now. You go comot here empty, just like the rest. The girls are not allowed to see their babies at birth. This is to avoid any form of emotional attachments between the girls and their newborns. But Tema insisted she wants to see her baby, at least for once. She didn't last till morning. No one actually knew what happened to her. The next day, Karachi saw two men in dark suits drive into the compound. They left with a wrapped bundle in their hands. She knew they had taken Tema's baby. As months rolled by, she could feel her time coming. Her baby kicked stronger each day, but she couldn't let her child be taken. She has formed a special bond with the baby growing inside her. She has to escape. That is the only way she could ensure her baby's safety. But she doesn't know how. One night, an opportunity came. A police siren blared in the distance. It wasn't for them, but the distraction was enough. While Auntie Leti and the guards were occupied at the gate, Karachi and another girl, Lai, ran. They barely made it to the fence before a flashlight caught them. "Stop there!" a deep voice thundered. Lai tripped, her scream piercing the night as she fell. Karachi didn't look back. She leaped over the fence, hitting the ground hard. She didn't know where or how she mustered such strength despite her protruding belly, but she did it. She wondered what would happen to Lai. Pain shot through her belly, but she paid no heed to it. She had to run to safety, and she ran. She ran with all the strength she could muster into the darkness. Karachi collapsed in front of a roadside church. She was exhausted, but away from the dungeon. It was there that Mama Kati, an old midwife, found her and took her in. She narrated her ordeal to Mama Kati, who felt so much pity for the young girl. "You are safe now, my child," the woman whispered. But Karachi knew safety was a fragile thing. After her encounter with Madam Kasi, she would find it very hard to trust someone or lose her guard. She gave birth in Mama Kati's small home, a girl, a beautiful baby girl. She named her Chinecherem. That is, God is thoughtful of me. But her mind wasn't at rest. 3 weeks later, she saw a black SUV pull up outside Mama Kati's house. Karachi's blood ran cold. How could it be? How did Madam Kasi find her? She thought, dreading what would come next. But as Karachi stood inside, her thoughts racing, the unexpected happened. The SUV doors swung open, but it wasn't Madam Kasi. It was the police. A government raid had exposed the baby factory, she later discovered. An auxiliary nurse, a new employee of Madam Kasi, had tipped them off. Lai, the girl who was trying to escape with her but was caught, talked to the authorities about all the nefarious acts taking place at the home. That night, the home was shut down and over 30 babies were rescued. Madam Kasi, Auntie Leti, and Dr. Banjo were arrested. Lai had also informed the police during their interrogations about Karachi's escape. Their investigations had brought them to Mama Kati's home. They interrogated Karachi, who corroborated what the other girls had already said. Karachi wept, not just for herself, but for Tema, for the nameless babies lost to greed, and for the countless others still trapped in hidden places. She wept because she knew she had survived where so many others had not. After weeks of investigations, Madam Kasi and her cohorts were charged to court, where they were found guilty and convicted of child trafficking, abduction, and kidnapping, among other charges. They were eventually sentenced to 20 years imprisonment with hard labor. Karachi later patched up things with her family, but she never went back home. However, she communicated with them as often as possible. She preferred it that way. Going back home could reopen old wounds. She decided to build her life around her daughter, Chinecherem, who grew up knowing her mother was a heroine. She appreciated her mother so much for not giving her up despite the dangers. Karachi couldn't pursue her childhood dreams of becoming a doctor anymore, but she found purpose. She became a volunteer for a women's rights organization, sharing her story, helping other girls escape the same fate. She picked up a job as a freelance writer, another of her passions. Deep in her heart, Karachi knew one truth. For every baby factory raided, another one was still operating in secret. Somewhere, another girl lay on a thin mattress, her belly swollen with life, waiting to give birth to a child she will never see. The battle continues. The war against baby factories is far from being over. These are not just stories. They are realities of many helpless young girls. Until stricter laws are enforced And until society stops shaming young girls into desperation, the business will continue to thrive in the shadows. But maybe, just maybe, voices like Karachi's and Lai's will one day bring it all to an end. If you watched till the end, I appreciate you. Kindly like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification button to get notified each time our stories are posted. I would also like to know where you are watching from. See you on my next story. Thanks.